Now, earlier in the program, I spoke about Mrs. Clinton. She'd been given a $14 million advance to write a book, it'll be ghostwritten, on her years as Secretary of State. And I think the title ought to be, What Difference Did I Make? Because if you go around the world, Secretary of State, everywhere she's gone, it's a disaster. Benghazi, Iran, Iraq, Afghanistan, North Korea, Syria, Latin American countries. What is there to write home about U.S. foreign policy? We don't stand for freedom around the world. We don't look at ourselves any longer, not this regime anyway, as the defenders of freedom around the world. That's not at all what we're about. And Mrs. Clinton, I have never drank the Kool-Aid. Ever since the Clintons first came on the scene, we were told that Mrs. Clinton is the smartest woman in the world. Smartest woman in the world. And in truth, pretty much everything that she's done has been in one way or another a failure. Even aspects of her husband's campaign and administration that she was in charge of. And I've explained to you why Hillary occupies this lofty perch in the Democrat Party. And I'll go through it again for you very quickly. You got to go back to Hillary and Bill's Ivy League days, where they met in young love and bliss. And Hillary was a student at Wellesley, and Clinton was at Yale, and then she ended up at Yale, and somehow they were drawn to one another. Somehow. And they fell in love. And while this was going on, people who knew Bill Clinton said, he's going to be president someday. This guy is going to go all the way. They said of Mrs. Clinton, she could write her ticket. This woman had it all. Remember now, this is the early days of modern feminism. I mean, this was the day where you didn't tie yourself down to relationship. You didn't get married. You didn't do anything. You just went full bore into changing the world, full bore into the career that you enjoy, whatever it was. But Hillary sacrificed all of that. Mrs. Clinton abandoned her own dreams. And instead, she decided to marry Bill Clinton, tie herself to him, and then take over wherever he ended up, allowing her relationship to be responsible for where she ended up. Her marriage determined where she ended up, not her independence, not her own career. She decided to subordinate all of that to Bill Clinton's career. And then the ultimate sacrifice, this woman of the Ivy League, moved to the swamps, the sticks of Arkansas. Mrs. Clinton essentially cast herself in a movie in a place like where Deliverance was filmed. And she went there while her husband earned $25,000 a year as a governor and was having all the fun times with Jennifer Flowers and whoever else. While she went to work at the Rose Law Firm and earned all the money for the family to live on. And she stood there. And she sat there. And she endured all of that humiliation. All to make sure that his career was not derailed. Because if his career was derailed, so was hers. Then he gets to Washington and the same stuff happens. He's still catting around. She still hangs in. She defends him. She does everything she can to maintain his presidency. They gave her health care to run as a partial price. They had tried getting rich quick in Whitewater. They tried any number of things to be big people. She gave up everything. This is the way the left looks at it. She gave up everything. She could have been her own person. She could have had her own career. She didn't need to tie herself to Bill Clinton. And look what happened to her because she did. Arkansas. May as well have gone to Mississippi. Alabama. Arkansas. Ooh. And stayed there. And so 2008 was to be her grand payback. The nomination for presidency of the Democrat Party. It was hers. Except it wasn't. Because out of nowhere came a young senator who was said to be the best at what he did than anybody. Better than Bill Clinton, better than Hillary Clinton, better than the Kennedys, better than anybody. His name was Barack Hussein Obama. And he decided he wanted to be president. He didn't care what Hillary had been promised. He didn't care what the Democrat Party had guaranteed her. He didn't care that it was her payback for enduring all of those years, subordinating her life to her husband's. And when push came to shove, the Democrat Party chose the young black guy who had never done anything. And once again, Mrs. Clinton was rejected and cast aside. After all she'd done, she had saved her president's career countless times. She had made her own career, carved out her own life with her own successes, while saving his. And they still dumped on her. Her campaign for president left her horribly in debt. She owed Obama. Obama wanted her to be Secretary of State. Who knows if she really wanted to do it, but she had no choice if she wanted to pay back her campaign debt. So she did it. And there's nothing really to write home about it, except they are going to write home about it in a book called What Difference Did I Make? Well, that won't be the title. That's just my suggested title. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the media, the Democrat Party is abuzz with Mrs. Clinton for president in 2016. Finally, she's going to get what was hers since the 80s. What has been hers since she moved to Arkansas, and what has been denied her since she moved to Arkansas. Finally, 2016. And they're all talking about it now. And the odds are that some young whippersnapper going to pop up between now and 2016 that will move her off of center stage. But until that happens, everybody is now on board with Mrs. Clinton as the next Democrat nominee and thus the next president of the United States, which sets up the sound bites which are coming up next.